Welcome to the Kind of Nerdy Girls podcast. Fandom, fun, funny.
Ooh, you found yourself listening to a very special edition of the Kind of Nerdy Girls. Joining us, the Kind of Nerdy Dudes, for a full-on Mandalorian mashup. Yes, there are many spoilers ahead and many laughs and many different opinions as we talk about the finale of The Mandalorian and what's ahead in season 3. Our fun fact will be, if you could put yourself into any Star Wars movie or show, which one would you like to be a part of? All right, here we go. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to the Kind of Nerdy Girls podcast. It's a holiday mashup. Woo! Extravaganza!
Because you are joined by the Kinda Nerdy Dudes podcast.
Warning. There are dudes here. Warning. All right. I don't know that Shelly's ready for her fun fact, so we're going to start with the dudes. But that doesn't mean that the ladies go last, okay?
No.
This is the Kind of Nerdy Girls.
We're low on the totem pole when it comes to the Just What I Needed network. We're used to being on the bottom here. We're good.
That's right.
All right, so our fun fact, and I want you to think about this as well, person who's listening with your earbuds on, running on your treadmill or listening in the car or just trying to ignore your children. If you could put yourself into any of the Star Wars movies or shows, what one would you want to be a part of? Joining us from the Kind of Nerdy Dudes, it's Clay.
So I think that the world that I would probably go Return of the Jedi, and specifically the Forests of Endor, because that was my first theatrical Star Wars movie. Like, I was in that wheelhouse. Since I've grown, my enthusiasm for Ewoks has tempered a little bit, but like when I was a kid, like the ads and the image of the lights and the trees at night and just that would be so awesome to.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we were watching that was it a couple nights ago?
Yeah, we watched Jedi a couple nights ago. Yeah,
and it was kind of taking me back to when I was a kid, and I was like, man, the Ewoks were. You wanted to have an Ewok, right?
Like after Jedi, they did 2 TV movies, and that was like what we got from Star Wars, and there was like a cartoon for a little bit.
Yeah, those were the dark days.
And there was no content. Yeah.
Also from the Kind of Nerdy Dudes, it's Listener Jim.
If I had to pick one, it would have to be dark and sinister, so I would have to go with The Empire Strikes Back.
Is there any particular scene or battle or something you would want to be a part of?
The whole I'm your father thing, I would want to be right there in the middle of that.
It would be so awkward if you were there with him.
Right. Jim is on the railing.
Kind of peeking around the railing.
Right?
Who's your daddy?
You're like the Jerry Springer of the city.
You are the father.
You are the father. I don't want to see that. Choo, pow, pow, ching, ching, ching. And joining us, a kind of nerdy girl from Conquest Journal and Creation Entertainment. Welcome back to the Kind of Nerdy Girls, Shelly.
Okay, so I'm really pissed I didn't go first because of course it's indoor. Of course it's with the Ewoks. This is totally going to date me because of course that was my 3rd movie. I was like in 8th grade when that came out, I think. So like I saw Star Wars and I really want to say the first one because it changed my life. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to be at Tatooine. You don't want to be anywhere that they are. But what I think is interesting is I want to know if any of the listeners pick Dagobah. Does anybody want to be in Yoda's little hut, having that little mush with him.
Yeah.
Stone structure. That wouldn't be too bad either, although I think it would be gross and I wouldn't eat it, but I wouldn't mind hanging out down there with Yoda either.
Well, and you and KJ could like logistically fit in there too because you guys are so short.
We wouldn't have to like, Luke is all crunched down. We could just roll right in there.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Yoda.
Hey, what's up? This doesn't hurt my back at all. Woo! Choo choo! Pow pow! Ching ching! He started as the producer of The Kind of Nerdy Girls. Now he's got his own show, The Kind of Nerdy Dudes. It's producer Patches.
Thanks for that.
That's a great intro.
Wow.
The visual was even awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I am gonna say I would be part of the Ahsoka show that's coming up.
Yeah.
Just because she's such a badass and I want to be all up in that badassery.
That sounded terrible.
Yeah.
Oh.
Phrasing.
That went down a dark path.
Sure did. If this was the episode of The Kind of Nerdy Dudes, that would be the title. But over on The Kind of Nerdy Girls,
Yeah.
it might be a little more PG. All right. I'm KJ. I am the host of this crazy little world we call The Kind of Nerdy Network. And I don't want to be in the Ahsoka show. I want to be in what we're about to talk about, that last episode of The Mandalorian with all of those badass chicks. And if I could get maybe Ahsoka back for that, that would be awesome. But I mean, I just really love seeing all of the women kind of coming together and kicking ass, and not in a way that it was like, we're showing you women kicking ass. It just was.
It was very organic. They did it really, really well.
There was
But
no
then-
effort.
But then I think Jon Favreau I have a newfound crush on Jon Favreau now, because what an amazing job he did with Mandalorian and bringing it back to the heart of what it originally felt like. And with those, those women kicking ass and
Yep.
just so
Well,
good.
and just the whole thing. I mean, I'm imagining putting myself in the scene like Jim was, and I would, when R2-D2 came around the corner and Luke's already there, I literally would have ran over and just tackled R2-D2. Like, I'm so happy to see you. Oh my God, you're here too.
Oh my God. I got goosebumps when you just brought it up just now. And I think what's really amazing about The Mandalorian is, as I was watching with Haley and Joey, and so, Haley's 22 and Joey's 18. We're all enjoying it together. But as soon as Luke walks in, and I gasped and I went like this. And Haley she just started crying. And then I saw R2, and then I started crying. And I thought it really transcends generations at this point, right? Because all of a sudden I was an 8-year-old girl seeing Star Wars for the first time. And here she was, like, also understanding the significance of Luke and R2 walking. And I'm like, this is my childhood. It's freaking me out. I mean, it was just, yeah.
Wasn't it weird? Up until you saw the reveal, were you like, yeah, this is definitely Luke? Or were you?
No.
Yeah.
And I feel like I should have known by the lightsaber, but I just kept thinking, God, who is this? Because I didn't really think about how they would bring that back, and they did it so beautifully. I don't care what anybody says. It was beautiful. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what about like Clay? Did you and Jim kind of go around the horn here? Clay, did you realize it was Luke right away?
Not until the green lightsaber. And then I'm like, oh, it's Luke.
That's it? You were like, oh, it's Luke.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Oh, Clay and I are going to have a Luke discussion, I can see.
No.
Oh.
No, there were
Yeah.
mitigating circumstances. I know where Clay's going with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to watch it a couple times. But it struck me that, like, when you saw the X-Wing, and it was such a great scene, like, coming across through the windows of the bridge, it didn't click. I'm still thinking, I wonder who's flying the X-Wing. But
Right.
like a few episodes ago, when Slave One goes across the sky, I'm like, holy crap, it's Boba Fett. And so I made that. I don't know how I connected the dots quicker there, but I was still kind of wondering like what Jedi answered the call, right? And I Luke, like the X-Wing flies by and I'm like, Luke never entered my mind and I don't know why.
Well, and maybe because of the spider episode that, you know, like we saw X-Wings earlier in the season as well. And so that was like, I was right there. So I wasn't thinking it was Luke at first either.
Yep.
All right, cool. You know, Ahsoka's around. So how many other Jedi are out there, you know? So it didn't click to me either.
Well, and that was like us together. I said to him, you know, I said, do you know who that is? And he said, it must be Ahsoka. And I'm like, oh, you don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Like, did you get it right away, KJ?
I did, but I'll tell you, like, I immediately thought it, but then I was like, if it's not, I'm going to be so bummed because it was my first thought. And then I was like, what if it is, you know, what if it is, I would be excited to see Ahsoka again. I love her. She's my new crush. But now I was like, oh, that's Luke.
That's the way I was.
Were
That's the
you?
way I was. I was watching it, and then when I saw that fly in, I immediately went to the front of my chair and I went, holy crap, that has to be Luke.
I think by the time Luke actually showed up, were you like sitting right in front of your TV?
Yeah, I was standing. I literally was standing in front of the TV like this, you know, sitting there watching it. And then when you see the green lightsaber, I went, oh shit, I went there.
Yeah. It hit me like when I saw the single lightsaber, I was like, crap, it's not Ahsoka because she'd be using double lightsabers, right? Mm-hmm. And then a single lightsaber, and then when it came out and you saw the saber and then it ignited green, that's when it clicked. I was just like, oh, you didn't.
But it felt like that scene. I wonder if we go back how long that actual scene is, because it felt like it was really, really long.
It felt really long. It was probably just, you know, seconds, because it felt so long as he's cutting through them all. And I don't know why like I said, I don't know why the green lightsaber didn't, like, I literally didn't know until they put the hood back. And then I screamed. I was like, yeah.
I kind of wish they would have said, hey, while you're watching this episode, maybe have a camera on yourself. Because I would love to see everybody's reactions as they were watching it, right? I mean, it was, I mean, like, he was still sort of I kept looking at him like, are you not getting this? Are you not getting this?
Yeah, I was really slow on the uptake.
And then he's like, no, they're not. And I'm like, yes, they are. He's like, no, they're not. I'm like, yes, they are. Yes, they are.
I was right there with you, Patches. It's all right.
Oh my gosh.
And it was really cool because as great as Rogue One was, like having that scene with Vader at the end, just plowing through everybody, just ripping them to shreds. Yeah. It was cool to see. I was like, oh, look, Junior's here and he's following in Dad's footsteps.
Can we have a Luke conversation now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to start a Luke conversation. And I wanted to tell you, KJ was reminding me about my tweet that was right after I saw the episode. And I said, me to my 18-year-old son, as we discussed the Star Wars universe, I love Mark Hamill, but then I have since I was 8. And my son said, yes, Mom, you have. That's how much they all know that Luke Skywalker was my first love. I was the only little girl with action figures. I had a land speeder, Luke, R2-D2, Darth Vader, and C-3PO, which I'm so like devastated that I don't still have those things.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, I think for that period, you always wanted to see Luke really come into being the badass that he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we were never really given that. I mean, in truth, I mean, a little bit in Return of the Jedi, but he was like the hope. He was like the hope for the galaxy. And you never really felt that full power.
You felt like it was almost kind of muted in a way?
Yes. And then the sequels, which my son hates, by the way. And I don't hate them. I love them for themselves and to themselves. And I was very happy to see a continuation of the story. And I love them separately. It's kind of like, you know, and other things like how I love the books and I love the movies and I can keep them separate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But Luke that's not the Luke I know or I believe that really happened in that second set of films. Or that third set of films. I don't see how that story would have ever happened, how he would have ever been like that. And so I'm going to start crying about it. So he's going to come back in The Mandalorian as his true strong self, how we should have seen Luke. I was just so happy that they gave us that gift, because that was really a gift to all the original fans, I thought.
Yeah.
But can't you kind of see why he was the way he was in like The Last Jedi? Because he came in there, he takes Grogu with him. Mm-hmm. And Grogu, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Dragon Ball Z. I got Dragon Ball Z. I was watching Dragon Ball Z.
We got a Goku.
No, so, Grogu. So he takes Grogu. So he takes him. Okay, he's going to train him. So then it opens up the whole can of worms. Okay, Ben Solo's his student also. Ben Solo kills everybody. So can you see now why maybe Luke was a little salty and wanted to turn his back on everybody?
Yes, but I feel like the reason that Ben Solo, it was kind of Luke's doing that pushed Ben to be so bad, which I don't see how. That's my whole thing. I can never see Luke getting to the point where he was getting ready to kill Ben Solo. I don't buy it. I mean, and I wish,
the rumors have already started now of a Skywalker series on Disney Plus as well. So then my question would be, at that point, you have to have Sebastian Stan play him, right?
And I think that was, I don't want to say disappointment is the wrong word, but like when he pulled back the cloak, I'm thinking, oh my God, did they get Sebastian Stan for this?
We both said that too, yeah.
And I saw the CGI and it's okay. That looks cool. Cause I obviously, when I realized it's Luke, I'm like, it's not Mark Hamill as Mark Hamill is today. Right. Mm-hmm. So who is this going to be? And then, I'm like, I was excited to see Sebastian Stan, but it wasn't, right? So it was like, oh, okay.
I agree. And I don't think that you could go down a road where you have an entire series where you're doing CGI Mark Hamill, right?
Right. No, there's no way that's sustainable.
So they're going to have to get somebody to play that in between loop. Yeah.
I immediately following the episode, because our routine or our ritual, I watch it with my son, 14, like Friday mornings before he goes to school and I go to work. So we went through the episode and then like immediately, we're thinking, okay, if Luke takes Grogu and we know what happens in Force Awakens and everything after that, mm-hmm. Will's theory is that Luke trains Grogu successfully, which gives him the confidence to reach out to Ben Solo and bring him in. And then it all goes off the rails. So Grogu
that makes sense because I guess if you go by the tradition, there can only be two, master and apprentice.
Yeah.
So.
I always was under the impression that it was almost like a school, like he had more than one student there when.
Right, and I think like Ben and the other knights were part of that. Was my understanding, and I don't know I'm not into the.
That's okay.
Okay,
we're kind of nerdy. We don't do canon here.
Yeah,
right.
I can't get that deep, but yeah.
So by that theory, with Ahsoka being around and how many other Jedi, there's rumors that Mace Windu's still alive and all that crap, right? Yeah. So at that point, if Luke's not the only Jedi left around and he's got a temple, there's got to be more Jedi for more Padawans, right?
Yeah.
There's your continuation of Disney's money, billions of dollars coming into
at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
So
before we go any further, I do want to introduce producer Jonna, who has popped in here. Jonna, how far in? Jonna just started watching Star Wars recently.
The wrong way.
She started with the prequels, and that's it. Go back a few episodes. Go back a few.
We're already coming at me so hard. All right.
I love you, kid.
Jonna, I have to give some context in case someone is listening for the first time and they didn't go back to what's the name of the episode? It's something about Anakin's hair. It's something about Anakin's hair.
His hair was atrocious, okay?
But anyway, terrible. That was when Jonna started watching Star Wars. So where have you made it? Like how far?
The last thing I told you I watched, that's how far I was.
So you
haven't gone any further.
I don't remember what it was. Do you remember? Are you into the originals?
Whatever the third movie. No, I'm not into the original.
No,
Oh,
you're
she's on
Revenge
Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jonna may not say anything else the rest of the time, but we appreciate her being here.
We appreciate you being here, Donna. We
And
appreciate it.
if at any point, Jonna, you're like, this is so boring, I don't understand what's going on, chances are most people who've been listening already did that, so you can leave too. Okay?
I know you were like, you guys want to do a Star Wars crossover? Did you mean to invite me to that? Or was that
Well, but then it was this awkward. You're like, I can be there late, and I didn't want to be like, I wasn't really talking to you.
Honestly, I was like 90% asleep when I read that text anyway, so I was just like, yeah, sure. All I saw was crossover podcast, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. I went back and read it later, and I was like, oh no, I kind of committed to doing that.
Well, what I would really like, Jonna, if at any point there's something that we are saying that you like legit have a question on or want explained, or we sound like we're crazy people, I want you to, like raise your hand and chime in here and be like, you sound like crazy people.
You could be like Captain America in the Avengers. Oh, I got that reference.
I got that reference. Yes.
And Jonah,
Got
I
it.
just want to say, as you're getting ready to watch Revenge of the Sith and you've made it through the first movies, oh,
I love you, Shelley.
do I even
You
need
know
to
what?
say?
I don't appreciate y'all attacking me. I will take everybody's
No.
Christmas gifts back, okay? I'll get my money back, okay?
No, my attitude is about the movies, not about you, darling. But what I was going to say is make sure you pay attention to the politics, because I feel like when I was 8 years old and I saw Star Wars, and, Leia was talking to Darth and arguing about, the politics of it, and, the Republic will never stand. I was like, who the hell's a Republic? I didn't know. And I didn't even understand a lot of the politics until Joey and I, my son, started talking about it, because he's seen like all the Clone Wars and a lot of the stuff that added a lot of that history to it, and how they got to Order 66 and all that. So after we watched The Mandalorian the first time together, we went back and did a complete rewatch, and we started with the first prequel. I cannot believe I even watched them a second time. But what was most important, Jonna, was the politics. Pay attention to that shit, because it is all over it's like the basis of everything else.
It carries through. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to
I'll
ask.
get right on that.
You better.
Right on that.
In the next episode, Jonna breaks down the politics across Star Wars.
Me reading from a Google Doc I found online. Okay, it says here that
We're gonna give you a pop quiz.
Yeah.
But see,
don't give me a test.
this is why you shouldn't have started with the prequels. If you'd watched them the way we were, you would be like burning through them because you love it so much.
Yes, you would.
Okay, well, excuse me for not being old enough to have watched them when they first came out in the correct order.
I will
I'm so
not
sorry.
excuse you for going to Google to find out how to watch Star Wars in order.
Okay,
Me.
but in my
That will always
defense-
be a stain on our relationship.
In my defense, I didn't want anyone to know that I was watching Star Wars. I was going to just impress everyone with all the knowledge that I had once I got done watching them.
All right.
But then I was getting very upset and I needed someone to talk to. So, KJ, you were my immediate go-to when I needed someone to talk to.
So, as you've seen everything, all the advertisement and the Baby Yoda stuff this year, has that given you any interest whatsoever to watch The Mandalorian?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I watch a lot of TikToks, and there's a lot of people who like dress up as the Mandalorian on TikTok, and they have the little Baby Yodas. So that kind of makes me a little bit interested, because I mean, the guy who's playing the Mandalorian, like his voice has to have a lot of emotions, because you don't see his face, right?
Correct.
Nope.
Like he has to carry a lot of emotions in his voice in order to pull that off.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of want to see how his voice acting is with pulling off as many emotions as I'm sure that he has carrying around a baby.
So Pedro Pascal plays the Mandalorian. He's amazing. He's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys saw the TikTok. Somebody made a TikTok, and they stitched in his San Diego Comic-Con panel talking about how he went in for his audition for The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and I'm going to get goosebumps again. So he said, you guys have to search on TikTok to find this because it's so amazing. Haley showed it to me this afternoon. So Pedro walks into the room and it's like Jon Favreau and a couple of the other guys, like the one director dude who is like really the canon expert on set. And I can't remember his name.
Dave Filoni.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so it was Dave and John. And Pedro walks in and he said there were just storyboards just everywhere. And he was like, cool, do I get to play that little like mouse creature? Or am I that alien over there? And they look at him and they go, no, you're the Mandalorian. And he was like, he totally lost shit. It was so amazing. And you could tell he was so excited. He was like, I'm the Mandalorian. I'm the Mandalorian. It was really, really cute. And
That is so cool.
yeah.
Aw.
And you know, his voice, to Jonna's point, I mean, I think he's a wonderful actor. And of course, I think he's super hot as well.
Clay, I felt like there was something going on before Jonna got here. And if you are still waiting to say whatever you were going to say, but if you don't remember it, it's okay.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
We can move on. Yep.
So-
It's fine.
Wait a minute. I want to go back to that, Clay. So you said you and your son watched it Friday morning before you went to work and he went to school. And then you watched it again when he got home, right?
I watched it again because I was answering work emails during the first. So, yeah, this time of year, it's crazy. Work is crazy. So it was an email I couldn't ignore.
Yeah.
And it put me in a bad mood. And then I missed a section of the show because I was focused on this. And so
And then you're like, yeah. And Luke's back.
Luke's back. Yeah.
I say this quickly and then we can move on. Like I've said before that what I appreciated so much about The Mandalorian is that it shows an entirely different side or different areas of this universe, right? And I feel like we have, been involved in the Skywalker saga for 9 movies, and everything else in that, everything else that we've kind of experienced to this point has been focused on that, right? And so it was a little bit of a, I don't know, that Luke is coming back into this and they're bringing the Skywalkers in, but like listening to Shelley, I completely agree, right? Like when that green lightsaber comes on, it sparks something from your childhood, and so I do enjoy that, but I wish that they could have gone somewhere else with it, right?
You would have been okay if they wouldn't have brought in the Skywalkers at all.
I would have,
Yeah. And I understand that being a separate universe completely, and I appreciate that. For me, I love that they brought him in. I love that tie-in, but I'm concerned about how that's going to play out. And you can't help thinking in your head, okay, well, Grogu wasn't in any of the most recent movies, so
right.
Well, and that's what I wanted to then go back to that. I do have. I'm gonna wait and go back to that, Shelley, because I have a question for you regarding that. But I did want to bring up and see if you guys felt this way at all. We had Jake in the Kind of Nerdy Network, and I'm really glad that he was like that he felt like the Kind of Nerdy Network was a safe enough place for him to be able to speak his feelings about the finale and not feel like he was going to get attacked, because that's kind of the point of the whole network, is that we can all feel different ways and celebrate that we love the fandom. So he said, okay, I'll say it. The season 2 finale was good, but only good. The action was pretty good. The Cara Dune, Bo-Katan, Fennec, Casca team up was pretty rad. And the moment at the end between Grogu and Mando was heart-wrenching. But the big showdown between Moff Gideon and Mando was a letdown. The Dark Troopers were almost pointless, and their big reveal turned out to be a bit disappointing and kind of distracting from the touching Grogu Mando moment. Any thoughts on that?
Jonna, you have a question.
Go ahead, John.
Hello. Okay, so I want you to know that I approved that post.
Mm-hmm.
Because I read it and I was like, okay, and then I read the rest of it and I was like, I don't know what this means. I was like, who are these people? I was like, what is he even talking about? I was like, I think someone in here will relate, so I just went ahead and approved it. I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and see what's going to go on here.
I'm glad you did, because it's nice sometimes that other people approve posts, because then they're like a surprise to me. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad that Jake is, he's not someone that posts a lot, so I appreciate that he was like, I need to say this, and this is a place where I can say it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, he didn't say anything really terrible. He said, it's not my favorite episode, nor do I feel like it's the best. I think he was just kind of reaching out to see if anybody else was like, were you because everybody's, oh, Luke, and all the things. Was anybody else disappointed at anything in the final episode?
Point about the Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
He went through a whole platoon of Dark Troopers that were constructed to be basically, indestructible. And, Luke just rolled them like they were, like rolling up in a can of tuna, right?
I feel like they did a good job of that Mando struggled with the one, was able to jettison everybody else out, right? So I felt like they established that the Dark Troopers are going to be a formidable force against somebody that isn't a Jedi. And I think they've established that there are few Jedi in the universe. So
Exactly.
I think we all understand that Ahsoka would wipe those things out. Luke would wipe those things out.
Yep.
But anybody else is really going to struggle, one-on-one with these things. And they're not stormtroopers, right? They can actually hit something. So
right. But I think that's part of the point is Moff Gideon, the Jedi are so rare and such a non-event with the New Republic or whatever at that time that that they didn't even prepare for it with the Dark Troopers, I guess.
Let me ask you, KJ, because we talked about this before. So the Ahsoka episode is still my favorite of season 2 and the entire series so far.
Yep.
So
that was such a good one.
Did this finale change that? Is that still your favorite, or is it like, where does this one rank?
Ahsoka's still my favorite.
Okay.
I did love this episode very much, but I will say in some ways I kind of felt the same and I think I said this to you after the fact when we were like taking it all in. It kind of crossed my mind. I thought I thought we were done with Skywalker.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah, you did.
We're not done, right?
Yeah,
it was
you
kinda,
did.
Yeah, like, wait, I don't think we're supposed to be going here again. but as far as like episodes and how I felt, that was because it was, I think there was nostalgia when you're looking at the finale that really, obviously you've got feelings about Grogu and where things are going with him and stuff, but then Luke comes in and R2-D2 comes in and you're like overwhelmed with nostalgia, where the Ahsoka episode gave you the Star Wars feeling, but it was something different.
Right. Yep.
Right. It was in the universe, but it wasn't like we're calling back all the things you remember. It was just a really good episode in the Star Wars universe.
Right. Yep.
Well, and to bring up your point and to what you mentioned, what concerns me, and which I mean, and
we're gonna put video up of this because Jonna just keeps nodding, and I know that she does not know. Like she's like, "Yes, KJ, you're right."
Yes.
Well, and
KJ says.
And thank you, Jake, again, because I understand Jake's viewpoint of this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about talking Mandalorian is that you get so many different points depending on what generation you've grown up in, right? So Jonna is the only one here that didn't grow up in the original Skywalker era.
Sorry.
No. But
our parents didn't love each other yet.
But and then you have people like my nephew who grew up with episode 1, and then he's the one that got us into the Clone Wars, and then now we're going to go into Rebels and everything else. So his viewpoint's different. Like he feels like The Last Jedi is on his top 3 of all the Star Wars movies. So just having that huge spectrum, my biggest concern is the Skywalker saga should have ended with the Rise of Skywalker. Okay. That being said, that's in the feature film arena. We are talking about the series arena now.
Yeah.
So now, Jim, let me ask you, do you feel, it's a dangerous move, I feel, bringing Luke into the mix on this. Do you feel that they've gone to the well one too many times with bringing Luke into the Mandalorian and this whole Disney Plus series mix?
No, I think it just brings more, it just kind of makes him more relevant again. Makes me want to fall in love with Luke all over again.
I knew you loved Luke.
Yeah. But I mean, there was such a knock with these last movies, like I said, with Return or The Last Jedi and stuff.
Yeah.
How everybody was put off by the way he turned his back on everyone, so to speak, and stuff. So this kind of maybe will make me understand why he was that way.
Oh, this is perfect because it all comes full circle to the question I wanted to come back to with everybody here, but in particular, Shelley, and you saying that you don't believe, you don't buy into that Luke could have become the Luke that we saw in the last trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want them to go there? I mean, if we get more Luke, it may be a Luke you don't like that explains why he ended up where he is.
Right. I mean, I think if they can show the character development between Luke, so the most recent Luke we would have seen then is Mandalorian Luke, up until the next Star Wars films, if they show what happened in between to develop his character and make him in that, I'm all in. Show me how that happened. Because from my perspective, Return of the Jedi Luke to the new films Luke, I don't get how that happened. It wouldn't have happened in my world. I can't see it. So, and that I don't want to take away from those films because I totally loved them. I mean, I was, I like cried when the first one came out and we met Rey. I think she's fantastic. I love the characters. I love the story. It just didn't feel right to me about Luke. And so if they can show that, yeah. I mean, I'm all about showing me canon, show me, character development, I'll buy in. But yeah, I didn't get there, just without that story, I guess.
And I think that's so funny because that's where I still live in that place with, I mean, there were a lot of things that I don't hate the prequels, but the thing that bugged me the most about the prequels was that I did not buy into Anakin turning into Darth Vader. Yeah. There was not enough from one place to the other for me to believe that Anakin became Darth Vader.
George Lucas.
I also would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, Jonna has something to say. Go ahead, Jonna.
I would agree with that. I don't think, because I watched the prequels, so I know what you guys are talking about. I really don't think that there was a lot of so many terrible things that was gonna lead Anakin to be Darth Vader and be super evil. I'm like, bro, they're just trying to train you to be a good Jedi, and here you are listening to Palpatine like a dumbass, and he's turning you to the dark side. Hey, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're fine.
But he was obsessed with saving her. I mean, and he would do anything at all costs.
She hasn't seen Revenge of the Sith yet. That's the one you haven't seen yet, right, John?
Wait, isn't that the third one?
Yeah.
I watched that one. She died, right? Because she had the kids.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought you hadn't seen it.
Oh, no, I saw that one.
I thought for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
That.
You almost gender.
I'm sorry. And I just want to say that Joey, as an 18-year-old, Revenge of the Sith is probably his favorite movie of all the Star Wars. I just muted and asked him a few minutes ago, and that's probably his favorite film of all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think it came down to George Lucas just rushed everything. Like he was more interested in throwing CGI, just like throwing up CGI all over your screen like an 18-year-old at a frat house, as opposed to progressing the story in the plot line.
Those damn 18-year-olds throwing up CGI at the frat houses.
Wait, I know Clay had a point. Clay was making a hand.
Go ahead, Clay.
Like George Lucas is an amazing creator with an amazing imagination.
Yes.
He is not a great screenwriter.
No.
And I think that the screenplays for the first three were, by directive of the studios, handed to somebody else. Like Lawrence Kasdan had a big hand in a lot of that. And I think that a screenwriter would have focused more on, Anakin's struggle with, do I want to be in love or do I want to be a Jedi?
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
And that kind of a conflict, and less political, and then all of everything, all of that, right?
Yeah.
He just came off as a whiny little bitch.
Yeah.
Preach,
like
okay?
The themes were great. Because I went back and, I've seen them a few times, and the themes are there. It's just the dialogue is atrocious.
Oh,
right.
Atrocious.
So bad.
So
They're always like this close to getting to where I want them to be as characters, and then it just blows up in my face. I'm like, okay, whatever.
CGI.
Well,
yeah.
And I want you, and then they throw up CGI like an 18-year-old at a frat party.
but I think, Jonah, that is probably the best description I've ever heard of that, though, too, of how the characters progress in the prequels. Because you're 100% right, because you're like, okay, we're finally there. Damn it.
This is Jana is right. Celebrate this, Jana.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna write this in my journal later.
Well, and that was systemic of all three of the prequels.
And I think it's fascinating to me, Jana, and I'm kind of glad that you did what you did. I'll forgive you for it, because it's fascinating to me that not having all of the understanding of the Star Wars universe, that you went into it and you still felt that way, because we were like longing for this incredible story that brings us to Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and it just fell so far below our expectations. You didn't even have those expectations, and you're still like, these characters aren't quite right.
Yeah. Stunning, visually stunning. I mean,
beautiful.
And aside from obviously Ewan McGregor, who was just amazing and carried the whole prequel, all the prequels, the lightsaber battles in the prequels, it was art. I mean, those
are pretty lit. I will say. I really did like those.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, like in that regard, yes, it's okay. This is what CGI can do. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but you can do it. So yeah, I'm 100% behind you on that, Jana.
So is there any other like really strong opinions or things that we haven't covered about the Mandalorian specifically? I think everybody knows, or if you don't, there was some confusion about Mandalorian season 3, and was the Boba Fett announcement where Mandalorian was heading. That is not. Boba Fett will be its own thing. Mandalorian 3 will be its own thing, but they will be set in the same timeline so that they can all kind of cross in and out of each other. Go ahead, Jana.
So is Mandalorian like prequel to the prequels?
Go ahead,
or
Clay.
Is it like a
It
Clay,
takes
please
place.
explain it to me.
Yeah, it's after Return of the Jedi. I forget how many years, and before The Force Awakens. So it's in between those two trilogies.
So it's like way beyond where you are at with Revenge of the Sith.
So the next three, episode 4, 5, and 6, which are, if you're going by episode number that you watch, that's A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Those are your next three. Then The Mandalorian takes place. And then episode 7, 8, and 9.
Yep.
Got it.
Yes. So, you have your homework for the holidays.
And what happened to Bo-Katan? Is she dead?
No, she popped back up.
She did pop back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I was more worried about what was going on with Luke, and I saw Gideon like shoot her, but I didn't see her pop back up.
When Will watched it, he thought the same thing. And then when I watched it the second time, I paid attention. And so
okay,
when Luke comes in, everybody's standing and
okay. So Bo-Katan and Mando are gonna have to go head to head then.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's where this season 3 is heading. Right? Is who's gonna take over?
I had so many questions after the episode, which of course, it's season finale, so that's just natural. But I feel like I trust this creative group so much that wherever they go, I'm not gonna think about any preconceived or what I want to happen.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna trust that they're gonna take me the right direction.
And doesn't it feel so good that like you can have that trust now in something?
Yeah. So Jana, our young Padawan, just know that it gets better.
It does.
So Kind of Nerdy Girls is where you find us in all of the places. If you go to kindofnerdygirls.com, then you can find all the places. And Kind of Nerdy Dudes, how do we find you?
Oh, Twitter, Facebook. To find us, we post on Kind of Nerdy Network on facebook.com/groups/Kind of Nerdy.
Yeah,
I believe. Is that correct?
You're on Facebook. You in search, you type Kind of Nerdy Network. We pop right up.
Yep.
And we talk like this like all the time.
Yeah.
We do.
I really enjoyed this. I wish I could talk to these people. No one's thinking that.
No.
Are they?
No.
Nobody is.
But everybody that's thinking that is already here.
Yeah. Well, let us have this moment where we think someone is still listening. And if you happen to be, I'm sorry. And you can always not go to the Kind of Nerdy Network. Thank you. Where are you? Come on with your guitar. It's a crossover.
All the
That's the closest thing I've had to a concert in 8 months.